In this video, you will learn how to identify different types of lines, how to classify triangles by their angle measure and side length, and also how to find the unknown angle measure in a triangle. So first off, let's talk about lines. The first type of lines we have are called parallel lines. These are lines that are in the same plane and never intersect, meaning they never cross paths. So for example, here we have two lines that are parallel because they're in the same plane and they're never intersecting, they're never crossing over. So we can say that line AB is parallel to line HR. And the way we can express this in math notation is we can write line A like this. So line AB like this is parallel to, and notice that is your parallel symbol. So two vertical lines like that, it looks kind of like an 11, means parallel. All right, and then HR is the other line. So line AB is parallel to line HR. And so if you forget the symbol for parallel, you can actually kind of look at the word parallel itself. It has two L's right here, and the two L's is your symbol for parallel. There's basically two L's right in the middle. All right, so that is your first type of line, and in English we can say this as line AB is parallel to line HR. The next type of lines would be lines that do cross paths, which would be intersecting lines. So intersecting lines are lines that intersect, or meaning they meet, at one point. All right, so for example, here we have two lines. So notice we have line HR and we have line AB. So we can say that line AB intersects line HR. So we can use our math symbol for line AB and line HR. There's no special symbol for the word intersect, so you just write out the word intersect. And if you want completely everything in English, we can just write out the phrase line AB and line HR like this. So we can say line AB intersects line HR. So parallel lines do not intersect. Intersecting lines do intersect, meaning they cross over. And then the other kind is perpendicular lines, which are a special type of intersecting lines. So these are intersecting lines that create a 90-degree angle. So for example, here we see two lines, line HR and line AB. Notice that they are creating a right angle, right? They create 90-degree angles. And it's creating four right angles, right? Each angle that is created is a right angle. It's 90 degrees. And notice that little square right here in the corner. That square, if you draw that, it indicates that the angle is a 90-degree angle. So for example, if I were to draw another picture like this, and we want to know that they are perpendicular, we just put a little tiny square like that in the corner, and that means it's a 90-degree angle. And that goes just for one angle too. If you have something like this, you put a little square right there, that means we have a 90-degree angle. And so looking back over here at line AB and line HR, if you want to state that we have these lines that are perpendicular, there's actually a symbol for perpendicular, and the symbol looks like this. It's going to be an upside down T, like we see right here. So we write AB is perpendicular to HR, and the upside down T is the symbol for perpendicular. So in English, we could state that as line AB is perpendicular to line HR. So again, to recap, we have parallel lines. They never intersect. The symbol for parallel is just drawing two vertical parallel lines. We have intersecting lines. They are lines that cross over, and their paths cross. They meet at a point, and there's no special symbol for that. But we also have perpendicular lines as a special type of intersecting lines, and the symbol is an upside down T. So the upside down T means perpendicular, meaning it's going to create 90-degree angles. So those are the types of lines that we have. And then we also are going to talk about triangles in this lesson. So some triangles we have. First off, we can categorize triangles based on either angles or based off their side length. So if you're basing it off their angle measure, the first type of triangle is called an acute triangle. Well, we learned about acute angles, and it's basically the same thing for an acute triangle. An acute triangle has all acute angles. So it's going to look something like this, where this angle is acute, this angle right here is acute, and this angle up here is acute. And remember, acute means less than 90 degrees. The next type of triangle is a right triangle, and the right triangle has a right angle. So if you remember your angle terms, so acute, right, and obtuse angle, those are the types of triangles we have. We have acute, right, and obtuse triangles. So right triangle has one right angle. So that's going to be right here in that picture. And then we have an obtuse triangle, which has one obtuse angle. And obtuse means bigger than 90 degrees. So see this angle right here? This angle is definitely much bigger than 90 degrees. So that makes it an obtuse angle, and therefore it's an obtuse triangle. Now there's actually one other type of triangle we have based off the angle measure, and that is a triangle that has every angle the same measure. So if you have all congruent angles, that word, by the way, I don't know if we've learned that at this point, but congruent means the same measure. So you can think of like equal almost. They're all equal angles, the same measure. And an example of that would be right here. So that in this picture, this angle is the same as this angle and is the same as this angle. And the name for that is called equiangular. So if you just break it apart, the word equiangular, equa looks like the word equal. And then angular, we see the word angle, right? So if you just break it apart, it literally means equal angles. All the angles are equal, or the same measure. And actually, we'll explain this later in the lesson, but each of those angle measures would be 60 degrees. Because a triangle, all the measures, all the angles, would always add up to 180. All right, so equiangular means all the angles are equal, the same measure. Now the other way we can categorize triangles is based on the side length. So we have our first type of triangle. It's called a scalene triangle. And this one is when no sides are congruent. And here we see that word again. Congruent means the same length, same size. So here, no sides are the same length or same size. So here's an example of that. So this triangle, each side is a different length. No sides are the same. So that would be a scalene triangle. So for example, this could be like maybe 6 inches. Maybe this is 5 inches, and maybe this over here is 4 inches. They're all different lengths. So therefore, this triangle would be scalene. The next type of triangle is called an isosceles triangle. Now an isosceles triangle has two sides that are congruent. So again, congruent means same size or same length. All right, so this isosceles triangle has two sides that are the same length or same size. So an example of that would be right here in this picture. So for example, maybe the left side is 6 inches and the right side is 6 inches and the bottom is 8 inches. If that is the case, two sides are the same length, so therefore it's isosceles. And if you don't have the measures given, you just have the picture, you see that little line here and here? That little tick mark on those sides means that they are the same length. So when you see that, we know that they're the same length, like that. So scalene has no sides that are the same length. Isosceles triangle has two sides that are the same length. And then we have our next one is when all sides are the same length, and that would be called an equilateral triangle. So that's when all sides are congruent or the same size. All right, so here, an example of that would be this picture where we have a tick mark here, here, and here, meaning all three of those sides with the little tick mark on it is the same length. So an example of that would be maybe this, where each side is 10 inches. So if each side of the triangle is the same length, that makes it an equilateral triangle. So this one we actually can remember the word based off the different parts of the word. We see equa, which means equal. And then the word lateral means side. And that word lateral we see in many different contexts in English. We see it in football, we see it in science, and other areas as well. The word lateral always means side. So this literally means equal sides. So here, that's what we have. All sides are equal. The word scalene and isosceles, it's probably easiest just to memorize those. There's probably not really a quick way to remember them other than memorizing. But a lot of the other ones, you can just kind of look at the word itself to remember what the term means. Now to finish off, we're going to deal with the angle measures of the triangle. So we're trying to figure out an unknown angle of some triangle. Now to do this, we have to know this one fact. Okay, the fact is that the sum of the interior angles of a triangle will always equal 180. So maybe that's a lot of big words for you. The word sum, remember, means adding. Interior angles, interior means inside. So if you add all the angles inside the triangle, it will always equal 180 degrees. All right, so for example, here we have this triangle. We're trying to figure out what is this missing angle up here. Well, if you remember that all these angles would add up to be 180, we can figure that out. So if you add up what we know, 70 plus 35, and then you add that with this missing angle measure right here of x, that's going to equal 180 degrees. Well, what is 70 plus 35? That's going to be 105. So 105 plus something gives you 180. How do you find out that something? How do you find that unknown number? Well, you can just subtract 180 minus 105. You subtract 180 minus 105, that gives you 75 degrees. So that missing angle measure is 75 degrees. And again, that's because of the fact that if you add all these angles together, it equals 180. And we can verify that. 70 degrees for that angle, plus 35 degrees for this angle, plus the 75 degrees we just found out. If you add those together, we have 10, carry the 1, 1 plus 7 is 8, plus 3 is 11, 11 plus 7 is 18. So it must always equal 180, and we have verified that we have the correct answer by double checking our work. So your final answer is 75 degrees for that missing angle. Let's take a look at one more example. Here we have this triangle, and again we're trying to find the unknown angle measure right here. So what is this angle measure? Well, again, to determine this, we can remember the fact that if you add up all the angle measures within the triangle, it will always equal 180 degrees. Now remember, this little square in the corner, that means we have a right angle. In other words, that is 90 degrees. So one angle is 40 degrees. Then you have the other one that's 90 degrees. Then you have the unknown one. And if you add all three of those together, 40 plus 90 plus the unknown angle, that will equal 180 degrees. So now we can figure this out. 40 plus 90 is 130, plus some number equals 180. How do we find that number? Well, we can take 180 minus the 130. If you subtract those numbers, 180 minus 130 gives you 50. So your missing angle measure right here is going to be 50 degrees. And that's your final answer for x. And we can double check our work, because if we add all three angles together, 50 plus 40 plus 90, that would equal 180 degrees. So therefore, yes, we do have the correct solution. And that concludes our lesson for today. We will see you next time.